Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session here today, talking about building modern supply chain. We have a cross-industry panels organized here with a couple of our Oracle customers and friends from Oracle as well. So I'll walk you through the agenda. I'm Vivek Sudhakar, the moderator for this session from KPMG. We have Dominic DiCondina from Insmed Corporation, Jason Rigg from Taylor Corporation, and then from Oracle we have John Barkas and Alison Schofield. And we'll run through, give a bit of an overview of Insmed and their journey with Oracle Supply Chain Cloud so far, do the same with Taylor Corporation, and then get a little bit of perspective from Oracle as well, what they're seeing from other clients and where they're headed from a product strategy perspective. So then we'll get started with Dominic, you talking a little bit about Insmed and your journey through Oracle Supply Chain Cloud.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here. I wanted to start off, give you a little background about myself, and then I'll talk a little bit about Insmed in the background. I'm the Executive Director of Global Business Applications for Insmed. I've been there for 4 years, and I'm responsible for supporting the technology that underpins our manufacturing, supply chain, legal, procurement, finance, accounting, HR, and payroll. So a lot of the back office functions. I'm not only responsible for the technology, I'm also responsible for program management and organizational change management. And when we talk about our Project Cornerstone, is what our transformation was called, I was responsible for working with KPMG and our global business process owners to make sure that that program delivered its business objectives and benefits. Next. Insmed, actually, you can go back a slide. Insmed was founded in 1988. They were a small R&D company focusing on rare disease. In 2000, they went public. In 2015, they implemented Oracle Financials on-prem. In 2018, we received our first FDA approval of our current product, which is ARIKAYCE. It's for a rare breathing disorder. In 2018, we got approval from the EU to sell it there, and then subsequently in 2021 in Japan. So from the years of 18 to 21, we spent time implementing the supply chain and the order-to-cash applications. Now you can go. I want to talk a little about the roadmap, but before I get to the September 21, I arrived there in August of 2020, so a year before we kicked off this roadmap. And at the time I arrived there, I would say the relationship between IT and the business wasn't the best. We were on unsupported database and operating systems of EBS. We were hosted in AWS. Hyperion was unsupported application layer, database tier, and operating system. So we had some decisions to make. I've been working with Oracle applications since 1997. We weren't about to go look at Microsoft Dynamics or SAP. We had a team who knew the technology, and so we wanted to go evaluate, do we go re-implement on-prem, or do we go to the cloud? So we worked with Oracle, doing a comparison of the life sciences practice. Did a comparison of all of our functionality that we had on EBS. We talked to other life sciences customers who had migrated to the cloud, who were operating in a validated environment. At the time, we weren't manufacturing product. Everything that we do is outsourced. But we were planning to bring some of that manufacturing in-house as we grow. So that's kind of the state of where we were at the time. So before September, we went out for a RFP. We selected KPMG. The primary reasons we selected KPMG was for their business process, their powered methodology. We didn't have really well-defined global business processes. So we brought KPMG in to do that, in addition to the functional and technical build, and they also brought in their change management team to help kick off the project. So we kicked off the project in September 2021. 11 months later, basically everything that was on-prem, we migrated to the cloud, big bang. It was a very well-run project, on time, on budget. I would say the biggest lessons learned out of that go-live was going from two-way match to three-way match. The business didn't really adopt that, so much so that we actually turned it off about 6 months ago. That's something I'm not going to let lie. I'm going to go back maybe in a couple months or years and try to push that, but just lack of understanding of that process, a lot of confusion. But generally, the project was very well received by the organization and the company. During that project, we acquired a company, a gene therapy company out in San Diego. And we didn't want to disrupt the project, so we integrated the project into our US legal entity as separate company code. So soon after, we said we wanted to set up a separate legal entity, so we divested, full conversion, and set up a separate legal entity, business unit, company code. So now we have two organizations that are functioning in the US. The San Diego manufacturing facility is what we now currently validate as part of a GXP compliance. So that project took, you can see it almost took a year. The reason it took so long was because it was a full conversion, and it wasn't just go implement manufacturing. So that's one of the reasons. During the time that we were implementing manufacturing, the supply chain team was working with KPMG, looking at their cloud planning products. We, at the time, ran a product called Demand Planning, which was DSX product. We had 9 integrations. We went live with that into the cloud. So this project was migrating off of Demand Planning onto Oracle's product. We spent 4 or 5 months doing that. Project was very well received. It now allows our supply chain team to have visibility across our clinical manufacturing for gene therapy, our current product that's commercially available. We have another product we expect to get approval next year. And then also we have a lot of late-stage clinical trials going on. So that allowed our supply chain team to basically plan that across all those different organizations. What we're doing now is we recently got successful results from our phase 3 clinical trial back in May. We are filing the paperwork with FDA as we speak, and we expect to get approval in Q2 of next year and expect to begin selling that product commercially in the US hopefully Q3, and then Europe and Japan later next year and into 2026. So, what this roadmap, really hopefully depicts for you is our journey with Oracle started when we were a small R&D company. With this new product, we expect to be a multi-billion-dollar company. Today, we're hundreds of millions, but this is a blockbuster drug. And so we are putting a lot of energy and emphasis in these systems. And one of the things I tell my boss, I said, we could become $50, $100 billion, and we don't have to change anything. So these systems are in here, and they're in for the long haul, and they're going to continue to grow and scale with Insmed.
Thank you, Dominic. We'll now move on to Jason, talk about Taylor Corporation.
Thank you, Vivek. So Taylor Corporation is based out of Minnesota. I've been working for the same organization through different acquisitions for 25 years. Started when I was 8. No. But we have about 86 different companies that grew through acquisition. Glenn Taylor is the owner of the company. It's a sole proprietorship. So every dime we spend is his dime. He cares deeply about that. But he's also very willing to invest. And he kind of shows that through the investment through the Oracle Cloud. We're still early in our journey on the Oracle Cloud implementation. We're running parallel implementations. One is finance implementation, and the other is supply chain. Because of the complexity of our organization, there's really no way we can do a big bang. If you can imagine the different manufacturing processes, different systems that we have to implement, each one of those has its own unique implementation challenge. So as we kind of move forward in our process of implementing, it becomes more and more challenging. So we're trying to pick off the business units that we can implement easier, that align more directly with the Oracle Cloud process, but some of the more complex ones, high volume, low quantity type of manufacturing, that's its own separate business model that we need to tackle. So from Taylor's standpoint, it's a pretty large organization. John and I were talking earlier, the culture of Taylor is very entrepreneurial. So every general manager within every plant has the capability to do whatever they like within their plant, within their organization. So that also adds some additional complexity of being able to get the political buy-in. To be able to sell everybody on, hey, this is what's best for Taylor overall. So it's a really interesting journey, if you want to go to the next one. You can kind of see, so we kicked off in July of 2023. It was actually our second kickoff. We had a separate initial phase that we were trying to do it business unit by business unit. We brought KPMG in, and they recommended, hey, you really need to solve for your entire organization before you start implementing. So that was a really great strategy to be able to say, hey, even though this particular business unit won't be implementing for 2 years, we still need to know what that solution is going to look like. Maybe 3 years, we still need to know what that solution is going to look like for them as well. So we went through the process of kind of visioning and validating that entire implementation scope. And now we're starting to pick up speed on pilot plants and different phases that we can start implementing piece by piece to be able to get to the end. So you can see this shows Q2 of 2026. I'm guessing our marketing team optimistically put that on there because I would be shocked if we get that. So anyway, so it's a long journey that we're still in the beginning of it, but we're very excited about it. So
Thank you, Jason. So we'll get into a little bit of a Q&A, especially with Dominic and Jason, and then we'll also ask John Barkas to weigh in on a few of these topics, providing us a little bit more of a Oracle perspective as well. So first topic is business needs and value assessment. Beyond cost savings, what strategic benefits is your organization aiming to achieve or has already achieved by transitioning to Oracle Supply Chain Cloud?
As I mentioned earlier, really the biggest strategic advantage is to help us grow and scale. I didn't mention earlier, but when I started, they had 400 employees 4 years ago. We expect to be well over 2,000 in another year or two. So expecting tremendous growth. So that's one of the reasons strategically we put it in. But more tactically, our auditors were pushing us for audit logging, audit trails in ERP, and you know that's not the best. So that brought our CFO, made him very happy that we were going to be able to do this. E&Y are auditors, and they really pushing us to do that. GXP compliance, right? At the time, we weren't doing any manufacturing. Now we are with gene therapy, and we expect to expand that not only just in the clinical, but when that product or drug, gene therapy, is commercially available. So from our perspective, those are the key reasons.
Jason, you want to go next?
sure. So as I kind of mentioned, Taylor's used acquisition as a growth engine for decades. And while it's been very successful, as I also kind of mentioned, it left a slew of legal entities and legacy boundary systems in its wake. So while we're talking about cost savings and all that, we're really trying to drive revenue growth through this. So we're trying to enhance our technology and update it into a single ERP platform across all of these legal entities. Second, we're trying to simplify the process, including the selling cycle. But maybe most importantly for us is the cross-selling opportunities that a single platform could bring for us. So if you imagine these siloed legal entities out there trying to sell each other's product or sell to each other, we were basically treating each other as third-party suppliers and customers. So having on a single platform not only gives us those cross-selling opportunities, but maybe more importantly, it allows all of our manufacturing to insource a lot more. So we can start seeing what other industries or what other business units are selling, and we can bring that in-house to our own manufacturing. So visibility is a huge part in driving that revenue.
Great. Thank you, Jason. And the next question, how do you go about identifying areas or functions within your organization that will benefit most from Supply Chain Cloud?
So I would say, I support a lot of different functions, and I have, IT business partners in each one of those functions, and we meet with them weekly, monthly, quarterly to review our technology roadmap. Right now, we're in the middle of budget season. We're making sure that roadmap going into 2026 is accurate across all those different functions. The way we work with trying to identify those opportunities are, the business comes to us with an ask. They come with business benefits, business value. We size it, complexity. We try to put some dollar figures around that. And there's never enough people or money to do everything. And so that's how we make our decisions, is what brings the most business value in their eyes versus the amount of effort it takes to deliver that value. And we do that not only across supply chain, but across all the functions in our IT organization.
Thank you. Jason?
Yeah, similar approach, right? So we look at ROIs, certainly, but based on where we are in our phase, we're still early on. So I would really kind of categorize it in two different ways. There's the big opportunities, which we know are the main modules, but then it's critically important for us to be able to find those small wins to get momentum going, not only for the leadership to continue funding, but also within the project team, right? You're on a project for years, it can go stale, and if it goes stale in the project team, it's going to go stale for the rest of the organization. But by getting those small wins, we can also drive engagement with the final end user, right? Somebody that's not going to be impacted with our transformation for 2-3 years, they start seeing those wins, and they stay excited for the future. So I would really say the small wins, as we say, hey, we can implement this piece of it, even if it's in an isolated instance, we can start seeing that value.
John Barkas, what are you seeing priority-wise from other customers' perspective or existing Oracle customers?
Yeah,
How are things?
similar to what was just said, I think a couple of things is the first off is to identify what your current pain points are. And I think the reality is that a lot of companies have certain areas that they're focused on that they need to be able to transition their business to be able to support either new business functions, either new business models. That might mean that they need additional visibility across the supply chain. What we're seeing a lot more is companies have very manual processes across the shop floor, and they want to be able to automate those processes or get rid of some of the paper. And so I think the first element in order to kind of identify what areas are required or what areas that provide the most opportunity is to identify what are your current pain points. That's one. Second is what is the direction that you want to take your company? What are the things that you want to do that you can't do today? And that's a huge opportunity. And then I think as you identify the value associated with that, I think I'm similar to what Jason just said about, what gives you the biggest bang for the buck in the shortest period of time. I mean, those quick wins help a lot. And so the payback based upon the level of effort required is also a critical factor to consider. And, Oracle, KPMG, partners all have lots of tools to be able to analyze and do a value assessment to help you to provide what your return of that investment would be. And it's really important to kind of look at that thing. So you're not only looking at, because sometimes what you think is going to provide the most value, when you actually do an analysis, do a comparison against others, you realize that might be other areas.
Thank you, John. We'll go over to the next topic, which is decision making and integration. So during your evaluation process, how have you weighed the advantages? We get this from a lot of customers nowadays, the benefits of a full suite, what Oracle supply chain provides versus best of breed using multiple vendors.
Yeah, look, in my opinion, I personally, I like the fully integrated solution only because I personally believe it's more cost effective to do that. When I came into Insmed, I mentioned earlier that the relationships weren't the best. Procurement was looking at other products. Supply chain was looking at other products. And so when we brought KPMG in and we started evaluating what would it really cost to go do something like that, put in another AP and purchasing system, another supply planning system, the usability, the end user experience across all those different applications, the cost to build, the cost to maintain through all the releases, and the UI, the different UIs. Those were the primary reasons that we talked through, and it was I would say it was a consensus among IT and the business stakeholders that it does make sense to stay on that. The business is used to already working with Oracle, and it just made that decision a lot easier.
Jason?
Yeah, so I would say that we're still in the process of this, truthfully. We directionally are saying, hey, we want as much stuff on Oracle as we possibly can, but we do understand that there is some uniqueness in our industry. And while I totally subscribe to the idea of a single platform is more cost effective, there are certain uniquenesses, and it's a fine line. You don't want to consider yourself a unicorn, right? Because you aren't. So much business is the same, and everybody thinks they're very unique, and we found that out during this process, right? But we need to find out what's not truly unique and be able to standardize it. But there are certain uniquenesses within industries that we do need to have an enablement system to augment the solution. So I didn't know I was going to be sitting next to our Oracle partner, so hopefully he doesn't backhand me for some of that. But no, we definitely want to drive as much as we can on a single platform, but knowing that there are going to have to be enablement systems that connect to Oracle so that we still have one source of truth.
Thank you, Jason. We'll go to the next topic. Have you encountered any challenges in aligning your business process as you go through your supply chain journey?
So I mentioned earlier is we didn't really have good globally defined business processes, and that's one of the reasons we chose KPMG for their powered methodology. So that was a primary reason. We only have one customization through all that, and it's an integration between org projects and EPM. So there's really no major, other than interfaces and reports, I don't really consider that a customization. So our CFO had to sign off on anything that was going to be a customization. So that really, and she's the one who said that. She's like, I want to make sure that we're following standard business processes. And her team would have to go to her, and she shot a bunch down. So we came out with one. And it wasn't too difficult because of the level 5 business processes that were defined by KPMG that mapped to the Oracle functionality. It wasn't that difficult for us personally.
Yeah, we have a similar process. Anything that requires a customization has to go through our steering committee. I really, again, where we are in our journey is still fairly early on, but it's really a balance between standardization and identifying what your true competitive advantages as a company, right? And as we go through the standardization process, and still ongoing, we constantly are finding people that think that our competitive advantage is something transactional, right? So we don't even have alignment, even at the leadership level, of what our competitive advantage truly is. So defining that standardization and driving that standardization up to the point where that's our competitive advantage and stopping there. That's kind of the key. That's that willingness to be able to do that. And that's the true transformation for us, is to be able to get people along that ride and in that idea of saying, hey, we're going to standardize. The way we handle a PO is not a value add or a competitive advantage for us, right? So those kind of conversations are always challenging as far as decision making.
John, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think the first off is, what is the objective that you're trying to accomplish? And I think in many instances what happens is when people implement new software, they say, okay, this is the way I'm doing it today. I want you to emulate what I'm doing it today in the new system. And so in many ways, why don't we just paint the screen different, charge you more money, and everything's good, right? The reality of it is there's an objective that you're trying to obtain, and there might be a better way of doing it. There could be a better practice that you could actually assimilate and be able to improve in order to. So if you focus on the objective, I think you're better off. I think two other elements is, one of which is you need to involve the businesses sooner. And I think in some respects it turns into an IT project, and the businesses are busy, they're all doing their job, and to get them engaged better, I think is important. And then the third element, and I think it's exactly the points that were mentioned before, is that identify what's differentiating and what's not. You know, what is it that really sets your business apart? And I got to imagine that how you pay your suppliers is probably not one of those, but maybe some of your manufacturing processes are. And I think you need to be a little careful that you don't want to delegitimize those pieces that really do differentiate you. There are some things that you really should be doing specific and very unique to your business, because that's why you're in business. That's what you do. And then the third element of this, I would, sometimes it's difficult to think that you know more about the way of doing this than anybody else. And the truth is, the value that the partners bring in is that the partners have done this at many different companies. And to listen to them and at least include that as a perspective as you make your decisions, I think is all great.
Thank you, John. We'll move on to our next topic, organizational change. What specific change management strategies do you utilize to help your team adapt to the new platform?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if it's specific to cloud platform, but if you're going to undertake one of these projects, whether it's on-prem or cloud, don't fool yourself and try to do it without change management. I own that function for our company. I've been doing these things for a long time. Would never be successful without a change management team. Change management team is going to allow your business to focus on the business process. It's going to allow your IT organization to focus on IT. Let the change people worry about how it's going to affect people, how they work, where there's going to be resistance, where people are going to be excited because there's a what's in it for me, and you can sell that across other parts of the organization. I know a lot of times people just look at it as a dollar sign, but if you go live with a system on time, on budget, and nobody's using it or knows how to use it, what good is it? Without change, that happens a lot. So to me, if somebody offered me a job to go do something like this, but I couldn't have change, I wouldn't accept the job.
Thank you. Jason?
So when I was kind of thinking about my answers on this, I was writing them down, and I checked with our marketing person just to make sure I'm not oversharing as a private company, right? I've worked in the public sector for so long. And I put my first word as a joke, and it said prayer. And I forgot to take it out before I sent it to him. So he said, "Is this a joke?" And yeah, it is. So it's all about communication, right? And in our organization, it's really difficult because there's going to be so many different phases and people that aren't going to be impacted. If you over-communicate too early, that it starts falling on deaf ears, right? So it's really about targeting your communication. And again, because of our entrepreneurial leadership model, you have to incorporate all the leaders along the way so that they're all part of that decision making too. So the change management, it's huge, and it's all about communication, making sure everybody has their voice and decisions have their chance to breathe, right? That's a big part of it too. If it feels like it's being rammed down people's throats, they just won't accept it.
Thank you, Jason. Go to our next topic on lessons learned. What lessons learned do you want to share with the audience here, Dominic?
There's a lot. Start off at the beginning, but project plan. Make sure you have a completely integrated project plan across change, functional, build, testing. Usually you're going to have multiple vendors in there. You have to worry about how you're going to support it. So don't just worry about the implementation. Also, you got to worry about the support model and transition. Resources. Work with the business, work with IT, make sure you have the right resources, backfill if you have to, have those conversations up front. And if you round the resources, you have to identify if you have the wrong resources, you have to exchange them fast. They can cause a bunch of other downstream challenges with people and the teams, morale, so that's a big thing. Having a good partner, you know, we work with KPMG. I'm not easy to work with, but I'm rational, and we had some tough conversations, and we're able to have that dialogue. So a good partner, I think, goes a long way. And then I mentioned earlier about hypercare. I have a different group that does managed services for support. So taking all that knowledge and moving it to a whole nother organization, make sure you plan for it. And then you're in the new world of these quarterly releases. For us, it's new because we have to now validate every quarterly release. So that's something that took some adjustment, but we handle a lot of the quarter releases by automated testing, a lot of automated regression testing. And that's really helped take the burden off my IT team and also the business when you go through those quarterly releases. And then throughout the course of the project, have change, do surveys. How's the team feeling? You know, are we on schedule? Are you guys getting what you needed? Make sure you check in with the team. But at the end of the day, executive support is probably the utmost. One is if you don't have executive support, you're not going to have much success.
Jason, I know you're still a little bit early in your journey, but any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, executive support, absolutely. That's primary. I would say two things. Define who you are now. What is your competitive advantage, like we talked about earlier? If you don't know what that is, you don't know what red line to not cross, right? And everything else should be up for change. And then second is, what do you want to grow up to be in 5 to 10 years? Because if you don't have that vision clearly in mind, you're going to be making really core critical decisions. We're already making them now, but you're trying to make them in real time, defining what your future is going to be if you don't have that already defined for you. So again, I said it before, you have to let those decisions breathe, because you don't want to be 6 months down the road and say, man, I wish we went left instead of right back there. Because that's the worst thing that could possibly happen in your implementation if it's a foundational decision. So I would say really understand and define your organization as best you can.
John, what are you hearing from other customers of late?
I think these points are all valid. I mean, they're exactly the same thing the others heard, but so maybe I'll just add a couple of others. I think one, don't second guess your decision. I think one of the big challenges is, people take a path, and it's like you're getting married, and you're going to have good times, you're going to have bad times. The key is you just need to continue to work through it. You need to make it work. And I think in that implication of that implies you have to pick a very good partner, and you have to really integrate and work with those partners and be able to understand, trust what they say. And I think that's a big component. I think around the executive engagement, that's really critical to be able to get their buy-in, and also the businesses themselves. I think the more buy-in that you get, then the more adoption you're going to have. The worst case scenario is that you implement something, everybody goes off and use their spreadsheets and continue down the path. And then a year from now, everybody wonders why they're getting benefits out of the system, or if they're getting benefits. And I think the key is the more adoption, so in other words, the more engagement they have during the process, the more likely it is that they'll be engaged and want to. One of the things about cloud that I think is a little bit different too is that you have to stay informed. And the implication of that, when you buy an on-premise application and you start to implement it, you take a snapshot in time, and that's basically what you're implementing towards, right? You're implementing towards what happened 2 years ago when you made that decision. In the cloud, it's significantly different. As you're going along, there is new capability that continually gets released, and new enhancements that are available, and potentially even replacements for extensions that you created. And the resources that maybe you'll save in not managing the technical aspects of it, you ought to be expending towards understanding the direction that Oracle's headed and what the things are, what's being released. And there's so many different avenues of getting that information through Oracle Connect to be able to leverage and understand in that. So I'd recommend highly, if you want it to be successful, to continue to engage and treat Oracle and your partner more like a partner than a transactional activity. And get engaged with the Oracle activities. We have lots of customer advisory boards. You have lots of different avenues for you to learn and understand what's going on, and honestly influence the direction that Oracle's taking. And that in and of itself really helps to be successful in a cloud implementation.
Thank you, John. Now we'll pivot a little bit to talking to our friend Alison from Supply Chain Product Strategy. We want to learn a little bit more about, hey, what are the emerging trends in the supply chain field, and how is it influencing your product roadmap?
Sure. Good morning. So you're going to be hearing a lot about this week. So I think my job here really is to kind of summarize and point you in the direction you want to go in the conference. But I think emerging trends in supply chain, I think the good news here is that I think everybody from the boardroom to the living room understands what happens when a supply chain breaks now, right? It's been in the news a lot. So I think what's happening now at a corporate level is that there's now investment in supply chain because people understand now what the issues are, what can happen if you don't do that. But I think the bad news is that I think the disruptions and the challenges are still continuing, right? Labor shortages, ports closing due to conflict. So I think companies are still having to deal with the same kinds of challenges. They aren't going away, and I don't think they'll ever go away, right? I think that's the way of the world. And the other thing that we're seeing really is sustainability. We've seen an increase in sustainability regulations by about, I would say, 200% over the last couple of years. A lot of it's been driven by EMEA, but there's certainly an awful lot in the US as well. So I think companies are looking to, figure out how they can operationalize their sustainability goals as well. So how is that influencing our roadmap? Interesting comment, interesting discussion before. We like to hopefully make it easy for our customers, reduce the complexity. And the way that we think we do that is through having, single applications, integrated applications across all the different functions on a single platform, on a single database. So I think that's one way we like to kind of help our customers. And then what you'll hear a lot about this week is connected visibility. So when I say connected visibility, I think a good example of that is our smart operations in manufacturing. And I think we're covering that an awful lot this week. And so what that is allowing you to connect your shop floor to your ERP execution systems, so you have visibility, onto the shop floor, from your supply chain applications, which has been kind of missing in the past. And then the other thing that we're doing is increasing the effectiveness and productivity of the users, and that and I'm sure you'll have heard the word AI already, right, in technology. And I'm sure I'll say it again. But we are embedding technology like generative AI, traditional AI within our applications to increase the productivity of your users. And I don't think in the past that's necessarily been a focus. It's been about data and transactions, I think. And then with respect to this sustainability, as a company, we are moving sustainability from being a simple reporting function to actually sort of embedding that within our supply chain applications. And we just recently announced Fusion Sustainability. So if you want to sort of go down to the demo floors, we can show you kind of what that means and how we're measuring it and how it's all embedded within your business processes, being sort of a reporting after the fact. So I think those are the areas that we're investing in and hopefully addressing the sort of some of the trends within the industry.
Thank you, Alison. One more question for you. And then what steps is Oracle taking to make sure the supply chain product stays competitive and future-proof in all these evolving standards and new technologies and trends?
I think continuous change, requires continuous innovation. So our goal is to make sure that we are continually delivering value to our customers, the latest technology, the latest functionality, so they can take advantage of that in their markets as they change as well. So as John was saying, we do 4 quarterly releases per year. We release a lot of new features. And I actually looked it up. On average, we have about 150 new features across supply chain in 1 quarterly update. So a lot of good stuff. So all the Gen AI, all the new technology, all the new user interfaces we're building through our Redwood design experience. So you'll see a lot of that this week as well. We deliver that quarterly. And along with applications, we're also delivering upgrades to the whole tech stack, the suite, right? The database, the operating system, our security services. So to make sure that your application's not getting out of sync with your platform, right? It's everything that we're upgrading. And that also allows us to give you the latest machine learning, AI. I think that's the 3rd time I said it. And natural language processing. You don't have to take it though. We allow you to choose what you want to take. So we have something called opt-in. So that allows you to choose the features that you want to enable. So after an upgrade, even though we're delivering all this new stuff, your application should behave the same today as it did yesterday before the upgrade was applied. And you can go in and opt in to the features that you want to enable. So it really allows you to, I think, as we were talking about earlier, remove some of that technology debt and take the features and the technology and the features that you need when you need them, really, to sort of to continually innovate and deal with the change that is going to be always happening.
Thank you, Alison. That brings us to the end of the panel discussion, but we'll open it up to the audience for any Q&A. Go ahead.
When I arrived there, they were on 12.2.7. And like I said, we started from scratch. So my predecessor, he's still there, he's actually my colleague, he brought in Oracle from the beginning, financials. Sorry about that. Knowing that Oracle was going to take us to once we're not just an R&D company, we're going to be selling products, so you have the whole order to cash, supply chain, manufacturing. But we basically stood it up from scratch. We didn't come into an existing company that had legacy applications like you talked about. It's probably in my career, coming into an organization, it's probably one of the cleanest ones that I've come into. I didn't have to deal with a lot of legacy debt, to be honest with you, other than just the on-prem platform.
Go ahead.
This question is for John. So in terms of the best of breed application, having supply chain planning as it stands now, how do you rate it with the other applications in the market? Because there are a lot of applications Oracle kind of mature for a number of years by acquiring and also utility development. From your standpoint, how do you think this is the maturity curve the Oracle is planning?
So you're talking about the SCM like on planning side or the SCM manufacturing? In general. Oh, yeah. You can look at Gartner, IDC. So there's third parties. I'll tell you my perspective, of course. On the third parties, I think we're rated very, very highly on those. On the supply chain side, we are at par with a lot of them. And I think the reality is there'll be some areas where they'll excel in particular areas. But the hard part that they have is they can't tell the end-to-end story side. And so one I think measure that we can look at is we have a lot of our customers in particular that focus on our cloud customers, but we also sell to a lot of our competitor ERPs, and that's particularly predominant in transportation management and supply chain planning and others. I think as it relates to manufacturing, one area in manufacturing and critical for us is that we don't really offer the manufacturing module external to our cloud applications itself. So in that regard, I would argue that we are at par or better than, of course, our competitors as it relates to the ERP packages. But as it relates to a specific MES that might be identified in particular for a specific sub-industry, we may not have everything built out for every sub-industry. And because of that, we've built open APIs and web services across the applications to be able to support it. So summarization, OTM, there's no doubt. Transportation management, we're at the very top. We've been at the top for many, many, many years. Supply chain planning in the latest release from Gartner and others, we're like up there. We're in the leaders quadrant. were very, very well received, and we have a lot of really good customers that are doing supply chain planning both with our cloud as a back office and our competitor back office, which is an interesting. You can't say that about the others, right? They're not doing that.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for the question.
Anyone else? Please go ahead.
As AI evolves, do you see the need for transactional buying reducing?
Sorry, for.
So as AI evolves,
Yep.
do you see a need for transactional buying in the future? Do we remove that role and AI will deal with it?
Transactional buy. Oh yeah. Buy. Oh, transactional. Oh, okay. You mean you're talking about, well, are we sort of automating user roles? I think we're using AI to certainly automate a lot of functions, and or certainly help some users do their job more efficiently, right? So the whole point of embedding AI within a process rather than it being a standalone thing allows you either to eliminate some repetitive, not valuable functions, or at least help users, like the customer service rep in order management, which is an area I'm working on, to do their job more efficiently and more quickly. And the way that we're looking at doing that is through AI agents. So if you're looking at some of our sessions this week, we're including AI agents within our applications now to automate some of our processes and also help the users that are using our applications.
Can I add to?
Yes.
Yeah, so just a comment. In the short term, for sure, I don't think any transactional roles are going to be replaced by AI. I don't believe that's the case. I think what will happen, and that's how everything's being developed now. I think what's happening is you'll make everybody better, and a little bit more, the stuff that you don't want to do anyway will be done by AI. And I heard a really interesting quote the other day that I just absolutely believe in. It said, he was asked whether or not AI was going to replace people, and he says he doesn't think it is. But he thinks what will happen is people that know AI will replace people that do not know AI. And I think the reality of that is, if you can take advantage, it's like the computer. When you first got a computer or cell phone or any new technology that came out, those that got better at using it were the ones that were becoming a lot more efficient and better and more proficient at their roles, right? And I think that's what's going to happen. Who knows, 20 years from now, maybe there's some position that goes away because of AI, but I'm betting that there will be 10 more that will added because of AI. And so I think it's a great question. I think it's an interesting dynamic what's happening right now. And you're going to hear AI all over the place today, but in every instance as it relates to Oracle, when you talk about the majority of the AI, in fact, all of the AI requirements, and it will never automatically do anything. It'll require an interim step by an individual to validate that that's what you want to do.
Allows those individuals to provide more value to the business.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Right.
I mean, honestly, a great one, like as an example, adding a description for an item. I don't know about the rest of you, but when I'm wordsmithing and trying to figure that out, it takes me a long time to go figure out 2 sentences, right? And how do you do it? What's interesting is the AI will now come up with a recommendation. It'll say, hey, do you like it? And if you say, yeah, I like it, but I want to make some changes, go ahead and make the changes, then submit it. Or it'll say, if you don't like it, let me give you another one, another idea. And I believe that that's the huge value that AI is going to, at least for the short term, for sure.
Anyone else? Please.
So we're not live with Oracle yet. We're not going live until one of next year. So wanted to understand the process in which a user or customer submits an enhancement request or some new technology. What is the actual lead time to when you might see that into fruition in some of the releases?
So we have different ways of getting your ideas or requests through to the development teams, depending on how much or how little you want to be involved, right? So we have on our Customer Connect platform that all our customers have access to, we have what's called Idea Lab, and our partners or our customers can log ideas, for different products, and then we have customers that would then vote on, oh, okay, I need that as well, and here's my use case, right? So whenever we're planning a release, people like me will go regularly into Idea Lab and we'll have a look at what's being requested and how many people are looking for it. So that's sort of the general way of getting your ideas into our development processes. If you want to be more involved, we have customer advisory boards that you can join, and we have regular meetings where development will present. I know I've presented, okay, so we're thinking of doing this in our applications. Who likes that, who doesn't, who thinks that's a good idea, and we have other customers present as well. So we have cabs that are on site. I think there was one earlier this week for manufacturing. And we have remote sessions as well. So if you want to be really involved and provide design feedback, you can do that through our CAB process. I've also worked with partners and customers one-on-one when we've been working on projects that they need, and they've offered to put their requirements or their ideas in sort of as we've been building it. And because we deliver every quarter, you're able to see that functionality as it comes out, and the customers that need it can switch it on, and the customers that don't, can leave it off.
So just to add on that, over 80% of the functionality that's now being developed is being developed directly from feedback from customers now. So that's a lot different than I've done previously, partly because, as Allison was saying, because of the quarterly releases, you can see the value and execute on that. Have you gone to the ID Lab? Just a question. Yeah, but what's interesting, go look at the Idea Lab and look how many were closed. And so what's interesting about it, we're going to have an infinite number of people wanting new stuff. It is what it is, right? But if you go look at all the numbers that are being closed, what's really cool that I like about it is how transparent it is. Everybody can see what Oracle has accepted and what they haven't accepted. And you go to an individual module and look at it, and just go look at, filter on what's been closed, and you'll see how many ideas have been accepted. And so don't get frustrated that your individual idea wasn't accepted today. But the reality is everybody can only do what we can do, right? But at the end of the day, to know that a lot of those ideas are being accepted, and a high percentage of them are, it's actually pretty interesting and cool. That could never have been done on-premise previously.
That's right.
Because honestly, it would take a 2-year cycle, and by the time you got it, you couldn't implement it anyway because you've already customized it and you moved on. Anyway, I just wanted to add that.
And like
that. I'm sorry. Does everybody who hasn't been to Idea Lab? Or let me rephrase that. Who has been to the Idea Lab? Even if you're not implementing yet or anything, I just recommend you go to it. It's just really good way of looking at the types of things Oracle's looking at.
Yeah.
I was just going to add that when we went live, we had a couple open items, and we could see when they were going to be fixed according to the ideas and the roadmap. So we knew, hey, in 5 months, 24B, it's going to be fixed.
Anyone else? Well, I want to thank the panelists for joining us. Thank you all for attending. That brings us to a close.